All right, let's start 8-2D. We're going to talk about inequalities again today. And remember, those are things that are not just equal to. You can have a group that's, remember we did that greater than or equal to symbol, was like this. We had our less than or equal to, and we have greater than and less than. So those are our four inequalities. And today we're going to still talk about them, but we're actually going to write and graph inequalities. So that's our title, write and graph inequalities. And when it says graph, you'll find out later, we're not going to graph these on graph paper. So you don't need graph paper for this lesson. We'll just do it on notebook paper. So what you will see is that your directions will say something like write an inequality for each sentence, because we can actually take sentences that are in English and then we can write them, we can translate them into an inequality. And we're going to use, so when you see that, you're going to need an inequality symbol, you're going to need a number, and you're going to need a variable. So there's three parts to each of your inequalities. So let's start with this first one. And for your notes, I do want you to write down the sentences that we do. In your homework, you don't have to copy the sentence. So this first one says, you must be over 12 years old You must be over 12 years old to ride the go-karts. All right, so again, the directions would say write an inequality for each sentence. So here's our sentence. First, we need to define a variable. We need to figure out what is the unknown. Well, think about it. What is it that we don't know? Do I know how old the person is that's coming up to buy a ticket to try to ride the go-karts? No, that's my unknown. So I'm just going to use maybe A equals a person's age. And so to be able to ride the go-karts, they have to be over 12 years old. So there's our key phrase. We'll highlight that. They need to be over 12. So what inequality do you think is over 12 years old? Would make it over. Hopefully you're thinking greater than. So the age of the person that walks up must be greater than 12. So there is, that's what your inequality is. That's what you're writing. You've just translated this sentence into an inequality. So we want all the ages that are greater than 12. Okay, let's try another one. Number 2. You write down this sentence with me. A pony is less than 14.2 hands tall. A pony is less than 14.2 hands tall. Now, this hands tall, if you ride horses, I'm sure you know what that means, but if you don't, that's how horses are measured, by the length of a hand. And so someone in class might be able to tell you guys where on the horse or the pony that you measure from, but that's how they're measured. It's length that we use when measuring horses, and in this case a pony. But in this case, think about what's the unknown. We need to define a variable. Well, we don't know how tall this pony is, or whichever pony we're dealing with. So why don't we do, maybe we can do H for height. We don't know the height of this pony. So equals height, and that's all you really have to write. Now we want to write an inequality, and remember it's got to have a variable, which we have. So the height, we need an inequality symbol like we did on the last one. And in this case, it said look for a key phrase that might tell you which inequality to use. a pony is less than 14.2 hands tall. I want you underline which part you think is the inequality. All right, so hopefully you found that less than, that's your phrase that indicates what symbol to use. And we know our less than looks kind of like an L turned sideways, 14.2. So there's our inequality. So that's what that would be our answer that we'd use. We've translated that sentence to an inequality. All right, let's try another one. You must be at least 11 to play in the basketball league. You must be at least 11 to play in the basketball league. All right, so I'm going to pause for a second here. I want you to figure out what's the unknown. What do you need to give a variable to? So write that down. Write down what it stands for. And then why don't you underline the phrase that will tell you what the inequality needs to be. All right, so the part that we don't know, it says you. Well, we don't know how old the person is that we're dealing with, so we don't know their age. So we'll do A for age again. You can use any letter you want to, but I chose A. So, and then hopefully when you underlined the phrase that indicates your inequality, you underlined at least. You must be at least 11. So let's write our inequality. And I do want all your inequalities to always start with your variable. So the person's age, A, must be at least 11. Well, we talked in our last lesson about what at least is. Remember, at least you can be a certain amount or you can be higher. At least 11. So you can be age 11 or you can be older. So that would be greater than or equal to 11. So there's our inequality. Now that reminds me, we'll do one more, and then I want to give you a couple more phrases that you might come across that'll help you know which inequality to use. So let's try one more. To use one stamp, your letter must be under 3.5 ounces. Because you know how when you mail a letter, in order to just use one stamp, it's got to be a certain weight. It can't be higher than, in this case, they're saying 3.5 ounces. So if your letter weighs more than 3.5 ounces, you're going to have more postage. Maybe put 2 stamps on there. So you guys try it. Decide what your unknown is and assign it a variable. You write that down. Tell me what the variable is, equals, what's it standing for. And then once you underline what you think is the phrase that will help you determine which inequality symbol to use. Okay, so hopefully to use one stamp, your letter must be under 3.5 ounces. We don't know how much the letter costs that you're going to mail. So we could do maybe the weight of the letter. You could do maybe L for letter or something along those lines. I'm going to do W for weight. So we start out with our variable. W for weight must be under 3.5. So hopefully the phrase that you underlined is that word under. And so what inequality do you think means under? Less than would be under. because it can be less than 3.5 would be under that amount. All right, so I mentioned a minute ago that there's two other phrases, and you could turn back to the last lesson under 8.2b that we did in the last video, where we listed out some phrases that would mean different inequalities, and there's two more I realized that I thought would be good to add to that. So turn back to the last set of notes, and I want you to find where we had our symbols less than or equal to and greater than or equal to, and underneath it we wrote those phrases under there. Well, there is a phrase you might see that's no more than. And so let's just think about that, which one we think this is. So if I said, oh, maybe my class can have no more than 20 students in it. Well, so what does that mean? Does that mean that my class can have 20? So think about what numbers would be no more than 20. Would the number 21 be no more than 20? No, my class would be too big. So I can't go over 20. But what about 19? If my class can have no more than 20, could it have 19? Yes. So you could have less than 20, but you could also have 20 students. So it's this less than or equal to. And so underneath that one, why don't you write no more than. That's another way to say that means less than or equal to. It's not more, it has to be less, or it can equal. So, and if you think about it, you have symbols less than, greater than, and equal to. If I say it's no more than, that one's gone. And then these two combine to be, whoops, I crossed out the wrong one. Let's back up a second. No more than, I need to cross out my more than symbol, and I think I'll change colors there. Cross out the greater than, so I'm left with less than and equal to, so I can combine those into less than or equal to. No more than, less than or equal to. Okay, then there's another phrase that's no less than. Maybe, oh, what could we say? You're going to, maybe you're going to the mall, and your mom's dropping you off, and you say, okay, Mom, in order to be able to go to the movie, to get a snack while I'm there at the mall, I can have no less than $20, or I need no less. We want to be polite and say, may I please have no less than $20? So if I say no less than $20, well, that means I won't have enough money if I have less than $20, right? So no less than 20, I need at least $20. Well, what's at least? I can have 20, or I can go above 20. And again, let's look back at this thing. So no less than, if we take our symbols here, our kind of three basics, no less than means I can't have less than. So I can either have more than 20 or I can have 20. So there's the greater than. So then let's come back over here and let's put that another way to write greater than or equal to is no less than. All right, so that's the first part of this lesson. The second part is graphing. So your directions will say graph each inequality. So you will be given an inequality, and I believe we were on number 5. So let's take n is less than or equal to 9. So what we want to do is put this on a number line, not on a coordinate plane like we did with ordered pairs. So go ahead and draw a part of a line, and I want you to put, all you have to really put are 3 little marks on there. We're going to focus in on our number line around the number that we're talking about. And in this case, we want all the numbers that are greater than or equal to 9. So let's put 9 right in the middle. And then you just have to number the one on either side of the 9. So one higher would be 10, one lower would be 8. So then to graph that one, let's focus in on that 9. And so we want greater than or equal to. Well, can it equal 9? Yes. And so the thing you need to know with this is that if it equals the point, you actually put a dot right there. I want it to equal 9. It's like that. It's kind of like, remember when we did coordinate planes and we graphed? You don't need to write this down, but like if I were going to graph a point over here on a coordinate plane, and I want the point maybe 2, 3. I put a dot right there because a dot means you want that point. So I want the number 9. It makes it true. It's a solution to this inequality. But then there's also all the numbers that are bigger than 9. And so I want 10. Okay, I'm going to put a dot there. But there's all kinds of numbers that are actually in between. There's fractions and decimals between 9 and 10. So like 9.5. Is that bigger than 9? Yes. So that would be a dot. What about 9 3/4? Yes. What about 9.25? Those are all greater. And what about 10.5 maybe? That'd be here. And then it keeps on going. 11 would be bigger. 12, 13, 14. It goes on forever and ever and ever. Well, I could keep filling in all these dots in here and filling in and filling in. Well, essentially, I just put so many dots it ends up being like a line. And I want it to go on forever. So I draw my arrow, shade it in, and so it's basically I want the number 9, so I put a dot right there, and it goes to the right. Because I want all the numbers that are 9 or higher. And that's the graph. The arrow is colored in on the numbers that make this true. Let's try another one. Let's do n is less than 10. So we'll draw our number line. We are going to focus in at 10. So do a mark at 10 and then go one higher is 11, one smaller is 9. Now, this one just says less than. I can't actually have it equal 10. I can get really close. So like I could be maybe 9.5, 9.6, 9.7, 9.8, 9.9, 9.9999999, but I can't get to 10. So here's how we graph it. Instead of putting a dot on 10, because I'm not supposed to, it can't equal 10, I'm going to put a circle. And the circle is like a hole. It's empty right there. It doesn't equal 10, so it's not shaded in. It's just a circle that's, like I said, it's empty. If we fill it in, then 10's allowed, but it's not. So I put a circle there because it's only less than. So it's all the numbers really close to 10, but it can't equal 10. 9 would work, 9.1, 9.2, and we would just, so all this would fill in towards the left. So essentially, we're going to make an arrow that goes to the left. It starts out with a circle at 10, goes to the left. All the numbers less than 10. Let's try another one. Number 7. Let's do x is less than or equal to 15. So we draw a number line, put 15 right in the middle, 16 is one higher, 14 is one below. Let's begin at the 15. Are we allowed to equal the 15? Yes, it said it's less than or equal to. So we're going to put a dot at 15 because we're allowed to have 15. But then it says anything less than 15 also works. Well, which way do the numbers, are they less than 15? To the left. So that's the direction that you put your arrow. And I want yours to look a lot like mine. I want you to have the arrow, make it really thick so that we can tell that it's not part of the number line. It's sitting on top of it. So that would be your graph. A dot on 15 going less. Let's try number 8. X is greater than 7. Draw our number line, put 7 in the middle, 8 to the right, 6 to the left. Okay, so what do you think? Based on what we've just done, am I going to put a circle or a dot on the 7? It says it has to be greater than. Can it equal 7? No. So we're going to put a circle. It's an empty hole there at 7. I can't put the dot on 7 because it can't equal 7. But it can get really close. It could be like 7.0002, 7.1, 7.4, all the way up, and it goes forever. All these are going to be bigger than 7. So I'm going to draw my arrow to the right. Put the arrow on. And there's my graph. So here's the kind of to summarize those. If you are you're gonna put a dot if you have which symbols? Greater than or equal to and less than or equal to. Both had a dot. Greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. Okay? This is kind of a little reference that you can look back on. We put a circle if you have greater than or less than. So it can't be equal to, so we put that circle. All right, what I'd like you to do now, just to practice this some, is I'd like you to go get your workbooks. Remember they're in the back cabinet, that cabinet that's right next to where your textbooks are. You guys can open that. And in your workbooks, look for your F block, find your workbook, your names are on the bottom edge. I want you to turn to page 129 and do numbers 1 through 10. And you can do it right in the workbook. And you answer those, and then after everyone's done, you guys can pause the video, and then we'll start it back up. After everyone's done, we can check it. And so I'll have the answers here, and you can check them. And then once you get them right and corrected, then you should be able to have time to start on your homework. Okay, so I'm going to turn this page so we can get to the answers. I think. I hope. Let's see. I may have erased them. Ah, there they are. Good. Okay, so here are our answers, 129, 1 through 10. Here's your inequalities and then the graphs. So check your answers, and I will see you guys when I get back on Monday.